Okay, hello and welcome to Hello Governor the podcast. As always, I am Abdullah, and with me today is returning guest Michael Gough. How you doing, Michael?
Okay, doing pretty well. As we were discussing earlier, it's been almost 6 years, which seems like kind of a couple of lifetimes ago.
I mean,
Uh,
like I
in
like I was
today's world.
like I was telling you, the concept of time means nothing to me at this point. It's like, oh yeah, 6 years, 7 years. What is that? What is time? I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Yeah, it's just a stream of existence, uh, which is probably a good way to look at it. So, yeah, well, great to be back and good to see you here. As far as I can remember, and unless my brain's deteriorating, which is certainly possible, you kind of look and sound exactly the same.
Oh man. Because I tried re-listening to that interview and I just couldn't get through it. I'm just like, this is awful. Like
Now, was that last interview? Was that just audio?
yeah, it was audio only. So and it was recorded via Skype. Remember Skype? That
Oh yeah,
existed.
sure. Well, that's why I think you look the same because I didn't even see you that the first. Right, Skype, sure. Yeah. Is Skype like dead?
Yeah, it's done. It's
Yeah,
like it's over.
yeah, yeah. Zoom devoured it, especially, you know, during COVID, Zoom became like the king of the world.
Yeah, and I was still one of those weirdos who's like, oh, I still want to record via Skype, and then it's like, well, and then you get a better setup, and then it's like, okay, everyone is more used to Zoom, so I might as well just like talk people through it, and then it's like, okay, fine, I'll use Zoom, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But 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 how
Well,
but how
yeah.
have the past couple of years treated you, all things considering?
It's like life is life, and it's it's got ups and downs, and but right now I'm doing pretty well, and um, man, yeah, the last couple of years, it's all kind of a blur. But I would say, um, some rough patches, but it's uh, I'm I'm doing well and have gotten to do some interesting things lately. And one that I'll just throw out there because it just happened like I guess yeah, 2 weeks ago. Um, I was invited back for the second year to the big Star Trek convention in Las Vegas to play the theremin for the celebrity staged reading. Last year it was Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a live, you know, performance of the script of Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was a film from back in the late uh, 1950s. It's generally considered the worst film ever made, but it's so bad that it's great. Um, if you're familiar with the movie Ed Wood, the Tim Burton movie Ed Wood, that movie is about the making of Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was directed by Ed Wood. Um, and there's a bunch of like celebrity Star Trek celebrity people in the cast, uh, uh, and then this year, after last year was great, they asked me to come back and do it again, uh, and this is playing the theremin. Which, do you know what a theremin is?
I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't heard it played live, so I know what a theremin
Yeah,
is.
it's that weird musical instrument that you play without actually touching it. And it produces some very, interesting and weird sounds. And you can just make sounds with it, or you can definitely actually play, music with it. I'm moving my hands like because one hand controls the pitch, the other hand controls the volume. And so it was to accompany the performance, the reading, doing sounds and music stuff. Uh, and this year it was the script of War of the Worlds, the original radio broadcast with Orson Welles and company. And again, it was you know, a lot of some big celebrity names in the cast, and uh, it was great. And last year and this year, I mean, it was in one of the big halls at the convention, and the convention is just it's huge, and there's thousands and thousands of people, and there were well over 1,000 people in the audience for this thing. Um, so anyway, that was my latest little adventure, uh, and it was very cool. And they're already talking about whatever they're going to do next. The producers of these things, which I'll give them a shout out. And they have a podcast. Anybody can check them out. They're called the Treksperts, TrekSperts. And so just check out the Treksperts podcast or whatever. If you are at all interested in Star Trek, which I am, uh, I know almost everything there is to know about Star Trek, the original series. After that, I'm kind of like, eh, I, I, I don't know. I mean, I've seen other, you know, bits and pieces of the other series, but yeah, the original series, I'd be hard to stump. I'll put it that way. Uh,
So you have like the opposite effect of when it comes to Star Trek, because most people are familiar with like the stuff that came after the original series, but you're like that one guy who's like, you know what? I only know the original series. Everything else, I don't know.
yeah, I guess that's sad but true. But yeah, well, I'm old enough that yeah, I watched the original series, and over the years, I mean, I'm just guessing. I've probably seen each episode, 3 seasons worth, close to 100 times each, I would imagine. So my knowledge doesn't come from any deep dives. It just comes from having watched it so much. And I still do. I still watch reruns just because I dig it. So um, yeah, I would say yes. I do know the original series quite well. Well, just as a quick aside, didn't mean to interrupt. So I recently, well, actually, a couple of years ago, was looking around online and was in, I don't know, some Star Trek thing, I don't remember. And I saw that had been a couple of recent posts by this one guy in whatever this forum was. I don't even remember. And I knew who he was because he's a director. He directed like half a dozen Star Trek episodes, the original series. And he directed me in a play back in the 1980s. And so I know him, and I knew him, just kind of fairly well back then. And he was not a young guy back then. And when I saw that he had made these recent posts, I thought, wow, is he still around? I hadn't been in touch with him for a long time. So I saw that there was like a link to a website for him, and there was an email address. So I sent him an email, and I said, "Hey, Ralph." His name is Ralph Senensky. I said, "Hey, it's Michael Gough. I don't know if you remember me, but I was in the play you directed, the play You Can't Take It With You." And he emailed me back. And he said, "Oh yes, of course I remember. Hello, give me a call sometime." And he gave me his phone number. So I called him a couple of years ago, and we talked for like an hour and a half. And then I know that this group, the Trek Spurts, had done, he had made an appearance with them at a Star Trek or a sci-fi convention up in San Jose, California, which happens to be my hometown. Um, and I just thought of him as I was going to go and do this Star Trek convention, a couple of weeks ago. So I reached out to him again and I emailed him. I wasn't sure if he was still around, but he is. And he emailed me back and he said, "Yes, I'm still here. Call me again." So I did call him, talked to him again for like an hour, and he's 102 years old now. He's by far the oldest living director of anything Star Trek, and he directed lots and lots of television episode stuff in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he remembers everything, and he's totally like all there and with it. And so, anyway, I had just thought of him when we were talking about Star Trek. So I'm giving him a shout out too because he's 102.
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember because I'm good friends with Corey Burton and I almost like text with him almost every day now.
Oh yeah.
And and one of the things we talked about last time we talked was getting older, and he's like, I'm almost like effing 70. Like, don't, like he's like, I'm
Hey
like,
man.
and I'm like, Corey, man, like 70 ain't that old, but he's like, but his parents are still around and they're in their 90s, and it's like,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
I guess like you would think, being 70 is a lot old, seeing as,
Well,
their parents
I'm
are
I've
still around in their 90s.
yeah. Well, I'm feeling his pain, getting closer. Uh, hey, next time you text him, tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing about the whole, everything that changed with the pandemic. You hardly see people anymore. Everything's done remotely and separately, and it's just, yeah, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I know. But with Corey, like, I mean, he's always been a hermit, so like, I mean,
Yeah,
like saying like texting every day, like I'll send him stuff. I don't know if he'll respond because,
yeah,
there are times where he'll respond and talk and we'll have like a little back and forth, but a lot of times I'll just send him stuff and I'll just like, it'd be a while and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm still here." I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm hibernating as he calls it.
right. Yes. Yeah, I remember. I remember that about him. So he probably loved it. Oh, who cares? Pandemic? Great.
And I mean, but in all seriousness, I mean, he is like dealing with long COVID, and that kind of like, breaks my
Oh,
heart to know that, he's dealing
right.
with that, and
Wow.
yeah.
Is it's something that's still affecting him?
Yeah, I mean, it comes
Uh,
and goes. Like last time I talked to him via Zoom, I think it was because spoiler alert, I tried doing like a podcast with him. But what happened was, my internet was kind of terrible, but and the audio was just unusable. But I had fun talking to him, and we almost talked for like 6 hours straight.
mm,
And yeah, but we've been friends ever since March, I think, and we've been texting back and forth. I mean, I used to send him emails, but he's like, you know what? I don't like, don't send me these emails. Just like text me, and I'm like, okay, fine.
yeah. Oh boy. Uh, if you're not familiar with this, I'm going to tell you about something that I was in that he is like the title, kind of the title character, and he's so great. I ran into the writer, producer, creator, director of this, and it was originally a pilot for Cartoon Network, and they'd made 2 episodes. And it's so good and so funny. It didn't get picked up, but it's called Captain Sturdy. And there's Captain Sturdy, the originals, Captain Sturdy back in action, I think. And if you search online, I think it might be on YouTube or it's out there. And it is so the basic premise is that this group of aging superheroes are forced to get back together again after, being in retirement for many years. And now they're all kind of old and decrepit and their superpowers have sort of faded. But it's got such a great look. It's funny. The writing's funny. Everybody in the cast was great. So I encourage you and anybody out there to go seek out Captain Sturdy. And Captain Corey Burton is Captain Sturdy, and he's hysterical. He's great.
Yeah, I mean Corey is just like he's one of those guys who like, he'll talk your ear off about like old Hollywood and you'll just like sit there and be like, "Huh, that's interesting." And you just like want to listen to him go on and on about like old Hollywood. I mean, he's got like a million stories about working with like everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
And but speaking of cartoons, let's just get right to talking about cartoons because I think that's what most people are listening to this for. Or it's like, why are you talking about Star Trek? It's like, oh, I'll get to it. I'll get to the cartoons. Don't worry.
Yes, cartoons. We must have cartoons.
So, while I was doing my research, I know that you did Zazu for Timon and Pumbaa, and what was that experience like?
Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in that because I know it says that on IMDb. I did work on the Timon and Pumbaa cartoon, and I did do the voice of Zazu for, various things. I do not think that I did Zazu for that particular cartoon. I'm not sure who did, but I can tell you what it was like. I know the first thing that I did Zazu for was when Disney was creating a new and improved tiki room for like Disneyland, Disney World, and parks around the world. It never ended up in Disneyland, but it was at Disney World and a bunch of other ones. So that was the first time that I did Zazu, and it was a new version of the tiki room. And again, this isn't a cartoon necessarily, so it's just a quick detour. But the new tiki room was hosted by Iago, from Aladdin, and Zazu. And Iago was, the original voice, who was, Gilbert Gottfried. But they didn't, for whatever reasons, they couldn't get the original voice of Zazu for this, uh, who is, what's his name? Mr. Bean.
Rowan Atkinson.
Rowan Atkinson. Jeez. Uh, and so, yes, I did the sound alike Zazu for that, and then some other things, and maybe some like animated things. And I think I've like sent in messages to IMDb saying, this credit isn't quite correct for the Timon and Pumbaa cartoon. So I can't. I have to be, must be straightforward. I don't believe that I did Zazu for that cartoon.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So
I hope I didn't like bring up a terrible memory and being like,
no, no, no. I don't. Sometimes IMDb things just appear. Like there's on my IMDb page, and I've tried to get rid of it, but so far I can't. It's like, on the first page where there's my name and stuff, there's a big picture of like some big animated purple faced thing, I think, if it's still there. And I don't know where it came from because it's nothing that I had anything to do with, but it makes it look like that's like the first thing that comes up. for Michael Gough 2. I am Michael Gough 2 on IMDb.
Yeah,
The
I know a lot of people are being like, "What didn't he play Alfred in the Batman movies?" No, that was a different Michael
that was
Gough.
that was Michael Gough number one. I I used to get his fan mail a lot when he was, when the Batman movies would come out. And I knew of him. I knew about him when I was a kid because I'd see his name like in credits or something. I go, oh, look, yeah, it's me. And I at one point, and this is like physical fan mail, letters and things. Please, could you sign this? And uh, I eventually boxed up a bunch of stuff, found out who his agents were in London, even though he did spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, and I regret that I never got to meet him in person. But I sent it off to his agents, and then I got a little handwritten letter from him, saying, "Oh dear, I'm so sorry you've had to put up with all this. Given my age, I'm sure you won't have to worry about it too much longer." And and then he lived for many years after that. He lived to a pretty, I think he was 90-ish. He passed away about 12, 15 years ago. Yes, so he's Michael Gough 1. I'm Michael Gough 2. Um, but yeah, and occasionally credits would get mixed up between he and I, or other things would pop up, or they wouldn't pop up. Things that I had done that like didn't show up. Say, hey, wait a minute. So IMDb is pretty accurate, but not like they're not infallible.
Yeah, I
So
know. And if it makes you feel any better, you're not the first person I've had on here who's like, that's wrong. I don't know who put that on there.
I I I'm I would venture to guess that pretty much everything else on there is correct. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, of course, doing Zazu was great, and it's a whole, the whole sound alike thing is a different challenge. You have to, you're performing within there are parameters. You're in a box that you can't really leave because this character already exists, and you can kind of do your own thing with it if given the chance. But it's and you have to. It's hard not to kind of listen to yourself while you're doing it. Just to make sure, okay, is this sounding right? Hopefully, you get to a point where you don't necessarily have to be that self-aware, and if there's another pair of ears, a director or whatever will tell you if you're veering off course. you know.
There's not enough whistling for the gopher. Make him more whistly.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, uh, yeah. Uh, More gopher. Oh, that's what I say. Not never enough gopher.
I
Again, a sound alike character that was kind of my first big job as a voice actor. Um, we probably discussed it in our last chat 6 years ago.
No, but since then, like I don't see that character in a lot of media. Like since then, I mean, the last thing he was in, I think, was Kingdom Hearts 3, and that was kind of it.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to raise a red flag and say I'm not allowed to discuss anything further about
Okay.
anything in the
Okay.
future. Anything in
Okay.
the past is sure, of course. Well,
Okay.
specifically concerning Gopher.
Okay.
But yeah,
The opinions of the people on this podcast do not represent any company in particular. Thank you.
no, and I know nothing. There's only I'm the future is a blank. The past is a wide open frontier
Yeah,
in
but
this on this subject.
yeah, but I mean, seeing
Yeah.
as you're the is you're only the second person to have voiced this character, and you've been voicing him for countless decades now. Do you ever look back and think, man, this is like it's crazy that I've lasted this long for a
Well,
legacy
yeah.
character?
Yes. The Gopher. I mean, yeah. I mean, I was kind of like when I first, you know, got the role after the audition, which I remember very well. Um, and I remember watching the original Winnie the Pooh shorts when I was a kid. And I definitely remembered that character and probably, because I think I used to just sit and watch TV and try to mimic things when I was uh, a kid. And so, yeah, I was pretty amazed and, grateful that, wow, here's this character, Disney, um, this kind of, well-known the world of Winnie the Pooh. And yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of like, wow, really? Did that really happen? And I mean, like you say, over the years, there hasn't been, Gopher's pretty much been down in his tunnels for a long time. He hasn't popped up too much lately, but I mean, he still exists. And yeah, I mean, I'm amazed and thankful. And like you say, there's the original voice, Howard Morris. He was still around when they started doing the cartoon series back in the 80s. But for whatever reason, he didn't want to do it, or he wasn't available, or so I, got lucky and did the audition, and that little whistling thing was something I could do. So I thought, well, I think I can do a pretty good, imitation of this character. So we'll see what happens. And lo and behold, yeah. So that's
Still,
how many years later?
yeah, still doing it. How many years later?
Well, I think, yeah, so the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was like 86. I think it started, if I may be off by a year, but around that time. So basically 30, almost 40 years ago. Sheesh.
That's
Uh,
insane. That is insane.
now that I say it, when I say it like that, it's totally insane. Yeah.
Because I know, Corey Burton's been voicing Ludwig von Drake since like 86. So next year's
Yeah.
gonna be like the 40th anniversary of his of his tenure as that character. But like, it's crazy to think that, you guys have been doing these characters for 40 plus years now. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah, you hope that, your voice can stay in shape and maintain. Uh, over the years of doing, video game stuff in particular, it's definitely done, vocal damage over time. So, your things aren't quite the same, especially for me with like, because I'd done some singing stuff, including singing as Gopher, that was so fun when you get to sing as a character, not just as yourself. For me, it's just a blast. Um, but yeah, my upper range and like the whole singing thing has definitely taken some damage over time, you know, and with I'm sure a good chunk of that due to the some of the more extreme video game things where there's lots of uh, violent vocal activity. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, because you were active a lot in during the 2000s, in that era of like video games, like you were in Killer 7, Gears of War, and Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil 4, and I can't imagine those projects are very kind to a person's like vocal vocal
Well,
larynx.
yeah, Killer 7 actually wasn't bad because what, Dan Stevens is the character, right?
Dan
Is it
Smith. Dan Smith.
Dan? Yeah, yeah. And he was just, I mean, he was pretty cool, and kind of chilled out in his uh, menace. I know Gears of War definitely. I mean, I love Gears of War, the Carmine brothers and everything. And I still get, you know, I get lots of email for that stuff. And that's fan mail, whatever. And um, definitely, hard on the voice sometimes. Between that and the other ones that I did, which were pretty brutal, was the Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. It was like the orcs, uh, who were just really extreme. They were fantastic characters because they just reveled in their own evil and filth and whatever. But yeah, there was a lot of grinding uh, vocal stuff. So between those are the two that come to mind that were uh, probably did some damage.
Yeah, because the orcs in the Shadow of Mordor games and Shadow of War, like they all have those like what do you call it, like gravelly
Gravelly,
voices. Yeah,
guttural.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember one of the ones I did was, and they each had their own names, but I can't remember the names offhand. But one of them was he was infested with maggots, and they were crawling all through him and sticking out in various places. And he loved it. It was like, uh, it, it was like he was like getting off on it. So he said, "Oh, oh, my baby's here. The maggots crawling all over me." And, when you're doing that for a few hours at a time, and they're always very good about giving you breaks and, you know, drinking whatever you need, tea, water, syrup. Um, but the ravages of time and the ravages of doing some of that extreme vocal stuff. Yeah. Uh, Hopefully, it hasn't done too much damage, but I definitely notice it, in particular with the singing, but also in other ways where you're just trying to do certain voices and it's like, mm. And there are some guys who I know just have like their vocal apparatus is just like made out of steel. And it seems like they can pretty much do anything and have been for a long time. And it doesn't really have too much of an effect on them. Uh, of course, Jim Cummings has been doing characters like Winnie the Pooh for the same length of time and all kinds of things. Because, yeah, he started. I remember I was sitting and we had the same agent for a while. And I remember sitting in the like agent's waiting room when he got kind of his first big like regular job. I can't remember what it was, but it might have been something like the G.I. Joe cartoon. It was before Winnie the Pooh. Um, and yeah, and then he just like took off from there.
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember Corey in another interview. someone had mentioned Jim Cummings, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I've been working with Jim ever since he was the newcomer."
Yeah. Well, that would have been like the mid 80s. If we go back and look at his early credits, I'm not sure, he may have done some stuff before I knew of him or knew him. Um, but yeah, Winnie the Pooh started, I think, was it 86, 80, 85, 86? I don't think it was 87, but he had done some stuff before that. Um, so yeah, and he's still like one of the, you know, kings of the hill in the voiceover world, 40 some odd years later.
New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was like 88, so we're like around that time.
Phone keeps flying. Sorry. 88
Yeah,
is that when it
yeah,
started?
yeah.
88.
Well,
Okay.
according to Google anyway, so I don't know. Like
Okay.
it says 88. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually that seems about right.
Because I
Uh,
remember I remember watching a couple episodes of that show, but I don't remember much of it because it's been so long since I've seen it, and I don't
yeah.
like my memory is just not very good when it comes to a lot of these shows. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that show. I used to watch it as a kid, and then it's like I was thinking of like a totally different show, and I'm like, oh, my brain doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I know that feeling. Um, yes. Now that I'm wading back through the fog of time, the 88, and it had, I don't even know if it had, yeah, it had like two or three seasons. I can't remember exactly how many episodes there were total. Uh, but and it was, but I certainly remember, doing it, and it was great. It was so much fun because usually most of the cast were together. Now, Tigger, before Jim took over the role of Tigger, um, Paul Winchell, the original voice of Tigger, he was never at the sessions. And for whatever reason, he just kind of preferred to do his thing on his own. Although I did get to work with him, I think maybe two or three times whenever there was singing involved, then they would have to get people together. And there were several, Winnie the Pooh episodes that were almost like musicals in which, you know, there were songs throughout the episode, and one in particular where they're putting on a play that's like set in the old West. What's the title of that episode? I can't remember, but Gopher and Owl are like the hosts of this of the musical. So they sing the intro, and then throughout the episode they break into a scene and just start singing, and it was great. Um, but yeah, so Tigger and Piglet never got to see or work with Piglet. Um, he was in New York, and so he did his thing there. John Fiedler, who I knew of him as an actor before this, he was in one of the great episodes of Star Trek, the original series, and many other things, lots of TV and film stuff. And basically, the Piglet voice is his voice. He wasn't really putting anything on. That's just the way he sounded normally, the way Piglet sounded. And he was great. But usually it was all the other characters who were in whatever that episode was were together. You know, Pooh, Owl, Rabbit, Gopher, Eeyore, uh, Kanga, and Roo sometimes. And it was great to be there and just, work with and bounce off the other actors, which is always great. And that's one thing which has changed a lot, uh, especially
Yeah.
after COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad that you guys just don't record together anymore. Like ensemble records are just becoming like this like I don't know, like a dinosaur at this point, which makes me sad because I'm a proprietor of
Yeah.
like I truly believe like if you're gonna do like a show, try to get as many of the people together because the performances will be better because they have something to work off
Yes,
of.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if those days will ever come back at all. Even everything else. Well, for me, the whole world of auditioning, which I still have to do a lot. There are you know, some people are on the level of basically you really don't have to audition anymore unless there's something you really want to. Um, for me, I still, through the agents and whatever, I still get a bunch of auditions. And it used to be that you would go either to an audition place, like the one place where I remember auditioning for Gopher and Winnie the Pooh, was a place called the Voice Caster, which I guess still technically exists. But they were kind of the premier voiceover casting place around that's in Burbank. And you would go, and there were a number of places around, you know, the LA area where you would go to audition and you would get somebody would give you feedback and direct you and help you. And then and then there were people who did all the technical stuff, adjusting sound levels and editing. And or you would go to your agent's office and they had their own recording setups and they had people running the booth who would record you and do and help you. That's all gone. You do all that stuff by yourself now, which I'm not thrilled about. A, because it takes me a long time and I'm not, I really kind of need feedback and help and direction. Uh, and then, just doing all the editing and sound level stuff, which I mean, after a while, I mean, I'm okay at it, but I'm not real efficient. And so it's kind of for me, it's taken away from the being able to concentrate on doing the thing itself and having other ears to hear you and give you input. But that's the way it is. So, you got to go with the flow.
Yeah, man. I mean, nowadays it's like actors are expected to be their own engineers, their own sound mixers, their own whatever, and it's like
Sure.
you're asking way too much of these people, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I agree. uh, but you have to, yeah, especially like on camera, self video auditions. You have to have your own little, you know, studio basically, or at least something with decent lighting and sound and microphone and camera. And for the voice stuff, yeah, you have to be your own sound engineer and editor. And particularly I have found for me when it's something, if I'm auditioning for something that's either animation or a video game, there's often huge shifts in volume. Like there's some yelling and screaming, and then other parts of it are pulled down. And I can't tell you how many times because my setup not ideal. The computer, it's a desktop, is in the room. The microphone is in a closet. So when I'm recording, I don't see the screen. I can't exactly see how the recording is going. But there have been many times when I've, recorded something for like 20 minutes and then I go and I see that I can't use this because the volume levels either got too hot when I was loud or it's not loud enough. So I'm not able to adjust. There's nobody else listening who can adjust that stuff while you're doing it. And that solves the problem. So yeah, I mean, I sound like I'm whining a little bit. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but it's a bummer. Uh, yes, it I wish there was. It was nice to have other people there to listen and to help.
Yeah, man. I feel your pain because it took me a while to like, get a decent setup and like, make sure that I'm not peaking and not screaming too loud and and all that other stuff. And it's like,
Yeah,
ugh.
yeah, yeah. Well, you got to evolve, I guess.
Yeah. You also mentioned Gears of War, and I kind of want to talk about this before I forget because I think we I don't even know where this conversation is going, but
Yeah.
I gotta like um, uh, you voiced all the Carmine brothers, and I'm kind of wondering was it always the plan for you to voice all these all of them from the beginning, or did they like what you did with Anthony, and then they brought you back for Benjamin and Carmine?
Yeah, I think it's much more the latter. There wasn't a plan that I was aware of. And as a matter of fact, and I feel like, did I tell this the last time? Oh well, can't remember.
I don't remember, man. It's been 6 years.
Yeah,
I don't.
so it's all new. Nobody remembers. Uh, so the very first Gears of War 1, which was somebody will know. I don't remember the exact year. Was what, 20 years ago. Um, but I remember doing the recording, and the character didn't even have a name in the script to begin with. Um, I think it was just written as, like Cog Soldier One or something like that. Somewhere along the line, they ended up giving him the name Carmine. But you know, it wasn't like there was any backstory really that I knew of when I recorded it. And yes, and then he dies, gets his brains blown out, uh, and I don't know how, but for some reason there was something about Anthony Carmine that struck a chord with, I guess, enough fans, and I'm not even sure what the main uh, what the main impetus or motivation was to bring Carmine back for Gears of War 2, but I think maybe there was enough noise from the fan, community that said, "Oh, why did he have to die? We loved Carmine." So they figured, okay, we'll bring him back, but it'll be his brother. And so I'm not sure how much of the Carmine backstory when it really started to exist. Obviously, before Gears of War 2, and maybe it was all mapped out earlier than that. But I didn't know about it. But then, yeah, Gears of War 2, we meet Benjamin, who Anthony and Benjamin are kind of similar in their whole, mojo and attitude. Benjamin is the youngest, right? I think I'm right. Uh, so he's even slightly more, you know, green around the edges and gung ho, and Private Ben Carmine reporting for duty, sir. Just like, wide eyed. It's like, whoa, look, it's the monkey dog thing. Uh, and then, of course, he meets a terrible end, you know, just this awful, suffering death. But that time, the Carmine myth had become like a thing. Okay, now what's up with this family? What's going on with other members of the family? Is there going to be another Carmine? Yes, third Carmine, Clayton, the badass, the big brother. Um, and then it became, should Clayton Carmine live or die? And it became a whole, they did a whole fan vote thing, which was kind of tied into a charity fundraising event. They had T-shirts, Carmine must live or Carmine must die. And because it had become almost like a Kenny in South Park, no, Carmine, if there's a Carmine, he has to die. But other people would say, no, let Carmine live. Of course, I was hoping, I didn't know how many more Carmines they were going to kill off before they just let them all go. So I'm kind of hoping that Clayton was going to survive. And yes, they had a big event up at, what was the name? It was a convention up in Seattle where they did a big reveal, in front of a big audience. And then they brought out a big check to show how much they raised for uh, charity. And they invited me up for that. And I was actually backstage, and they had a script, and they had a guy dressed up as Carmine running around through the audience. So I was reading the script, backstage, so you heard the voice. And yes, they voted that Clayton Carmine should survive. So he still lives, as far as I know. Um, and yeah, he was in Gears 5 and other things. So the whole Carmine universe expanded over time. But getting back to your original question, I didn't know of any original plan of Carmine. And he didn't even have his name when they first, for the first script that I saw. So it might have been something that they created as they went along or created maybe soon after. I'm not sure what the history of that is. Maybe some others out there know more about that than I do.
Because I look, man, I'm one of those people who's easily impressed, and I do think that, the fact that you voiced all three brothers when they could have easily just gotten like someone else to do it is pretty impressive.
I'm,
So,
again, something for which I'm very grateful. Yeah, I mean, basically, Anthony and Benjamin sound pretty similar. I think I just amped up the gee whiz factor a little bit for Benjamin. You know, his eyes were just a little more wider. Even though Anthony, of course, he was like really impressed with, when he meets Marcus. Are you the Marcus Phoenix? Cool. Uh, you know, and then Clayton, of course, just he's just got a little more testosterone going on. So, just had to kind of lower the, yeah, just bring in just a bigger badasser, if that's a word, attitude about him. But they're all, I mean, yes, I'm very, again, something that I'm like kind of flabbergasted by being able to voice these three characters who are related. So naturally, they would kind of sound similar. My brother actually sounds a lot like me. Uh, but, hopefully there's enough distinction, certainly between Anthony Benjamin and Clayton, but even between Anthony and Benjamin themselves. So yeah, I mean, it's very cool. And yes, it's been going on for what, 20 years?
yeah, next year is going to be the 20th anniversary. That's
20th.
crazy.
Yeah. And you mentioned that and I didn't really even know about this, I think, until you mentioned it. And then I went and looked it up. The remastering of Gears 1, or whatever they're calling it, I forget. Uh,
Reloaded for,
right.
and it's coming out on PlayStation for the first time. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I mean, Yeah, it's great. Get to watch, get to see Anthony get blown to bits in really high def.
I mean, they remade the game in like 2015, like the Ultimate Edition, and this is like just an
Right.
updated version of that one. So, you
Well,
know.
yeah, I'd read some of reading some comments and things online, and people were saying, this, the 2015 update was cool, but this is really the ultimate, version. So it sounds like it's going to be pretty popular, hopefully.
I mean, hopefully, because I know that they're working on a prequel E-Day, so who knows? Who knows where that franchise is going?
Who knows? If you were to ask me, I would say I don't know. That's pretty much all I can say about that.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I remember we talked about this last time, was you voiced Raphael in TMNT, and how did that whole thing come about? Was it because Paulson didn't want to do it anymore, or was it just like, hey, scheduling conflicts?
I don't know, and I knew and I know Rob. Never really talked to him about why. And again, I haven't seen him for a long time. For whatever reason, yeah, it was that final season of the original series. Um, I think I my sense is that it was less to do with scheduling than just some kind of contractual, maybe, disagreement or something. Because usually if it's a scheduling thing, you work those things out. But I don't know. And he was the only one who, of all the original characters and voices, he was the only one who didn't do the final season. And so it was a little, and again, I remember doing the audition, for the Raphael sound alike, and was lucky enough to get, get chosen, and it was great. I mean, it was like, again, wow, this is such an iconic, you know, property and character. It was a little weird, because these were recorded with pretty much everybody in the cast there. So here I am walking in, and this was the final season, and I guess maybe they knew it was going to be the final season. I'm not sure about that, but I'm walking in. Everybody there has been doing this show for several years together. And so here I am walking in like this, you know, new, the new guy. And I kind of knew most of the people in the cast, uh, but it just felt a little intimidating and a little awkward. Like, geez, I hope I don't F this up. Or, you know, Rob Paulson he's like one of the kings of the hill too. And uh, it seemed, I think it went fine, and everybody was, nice, and after doing a few episodes, that was like, okay, I guess I think this is gonna go. It's going okay. So, but it was, yeah, it was a little. I don't think I've ever. That's the only time I ever had a situation quite like that. Uh, But yeah, I don't know why Rob was absent for that final season.
I don't know. I don't know either because the show went on for like, yeah, I think it was like 87 to like 90 something, and so it was a long time, and I think it was like
Yeah,
it went on for 10 seasons. So a lot of people
yeah,
forget, like, it went on for a really long time. It wasn't one of those shows that just lasted for like 1 or 2 seasons. It was like,
right.
no, this was Turtle Mania was a thing. This was
Oh
not
yeah,
like we're not making this
yeah.
up.
Well, so the final season would have been what, 90, 97, something like that.
I don't remember, but it was around the 90s. It was like the Red Sky seasons where everything became darker and more gritty and more like, they had like these new
Yeah,
mutations and it was weird.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to, let's see. I may have, it was somewhere around the time, it may have been before actually, but not too far off when I was doing Zorro, the Zorro cartoon series, uh, which was like kind of later 90s, uh, which was also, that was very cool. But I was thinking of that because it was produced by the same people that did Ninja Turtles, the Fred Wolf films, uh, did the Zorro, whatever it was called, the New Adventures of Zorro, I think.
TMNT ran from like 87 to 96, so
Okay.
that is a long time for children's cartoons.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, it would have been, yeah, would my thing would have been 96 then.
Probably like around probably 95, because you guys had to record like
Right.
a year earlier.
Well,
So
yeah, yeah, right. Um, and then yeah, and I had done some other things for the Fred Wolf people. Well, Speed Racer, the new Speed Racer, and then Zorro, and yeah, they really made their mark doing the Ninja Turtles.
But does it feel weird, like, doing conventions and being like, oh, you voiced Raphael, and it's like, yeah, yes, technically true, but I'm not like the original Raphael.
Well, yes, I do always, and most people probably know that, or if they, if there's like a picture of Raphael and say, "You were Raphael?" I said, "Well, yes." And then it's like, here's the caveat. Yes, for the final season, I'm not sure how many episodes there were. So yeah, no, the original Raphael, Rob Paulson, who you know has done tons of great things. Um, and, but it's like, well, I did do it. And it was, an actual full season. So it's a thing. It's just, yeah, it's a little, I definitely have to explain it if anybody ever asks.
It's like, yeah, I did Raphael for 8 episodes in the final season.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, like, to close this thing off, let's talk about, Deckard Cain. Love Deckard Cain.
Ah, me too. Yeah. Don't know what's happening with Deckard lately. I mean, we know that he got bumped off in a very unceremonious way, but he has appeared after that in various, different games or different forms. And he's sort of, there's always the possibility that he could reappear somehow, either as a spirit or you know, a backstory or a prequel or some kind of side, uh, you know, thing. But yeah, of course, yes, I love Deckard Cain, and I'm knocking on wood here. As we talk about this, I'm thinking there's been like a handful of things that I've done the voice of over a long period of time. Deckard Cain is certainly one of the longest. Diablo 1 was, in the 90s, right? Uh, and he certainly evolved over time. And I still, I do get uh, fan mail and requests for Deckard Cain. Uh, somebody, I think I did what was it? Can't remember. I did like a little message for somebody. Well, maybe it was for them, somebody getting married. I can't remember. But stay a while and listen as I implore you to make a toast to the happy couple, something like that. Yeah, we love Deckard Cain.
Oh man, and speaking of like anniversaries, like next year's gonna be the 30th anniversary of Diablo, so there you
Okay,
go.
so 90,
96.
96.
Yes, 96.
Wow. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think. So Gopher, Deckard Cain, Carmine Brothers. Eh, what else has lasted for a long time? Uh, yeah, I mean, it's again very grateful that something has lasted as long as it has. I'm
Pe
not sure. I was just
sh
going to say, I'm not sure if this is still true, but they at one point the people at Blizzard asked me to do the voice of their phone mail system as Deckard Cain, so that whenever you call Blizzard, Deckard Cain, would be the voice of, if you know the party of the wretched soul you're trying to reach, press one. Or, I don't know if that's still true. Maybe, probably not, but it was cool to be the voice of the Blizzard phone system for a while.
People still have phone systems? What year is this?
Well, this was a while ago. This was a while back. I mean, if you call something, they're still like, you still get directed to some kind of a voicemail system usually, don't you? Yeah, I mean, this was a while ago,
Nobody
but
knows what that is anymore.
ah, um, yeah. Now, did you play Diablo
I played
yourself? What?
I played a lot of Diablo 2. Diablo 3 is kind of Diablo 3 is like, hit and miss. And Diablo
Yeah,
4 I've yet to play, but it's kind of like I've heard mixed things about that, but I'm like, you know what? 2 is the
yeah,
sweet spot. Everything else is kind of like eh. Like I'm like 2 is the best one, 3 and
yeah,
4 is just like whatever.
yeah. I thought the cinematics for three were very cool, but yeah. So, I hope someday he can get resurrected in some form because I think the world needs more Deckard Cain.
Yeah, I mean he's always I mean I always like again I going back to close this interview off I'm like what I
Yeah.
am easily impressed and when they got you back for Diablo Inferno I'm like it's like yeah he can still do the voice I'm easily impressed by that.
Well, that's the weird thing. I mean, that the voice was old to begin with. So now he's still old. So uh, one thing that I got to do, which I haven't, I've hardly done these. I've done like a couple of these over the years, was an audio book. And it was and this was during the pandemic. This was one thing that I did during the pandemic. And it was weird. Uh, you go to a place, and I mean, they were very good about making everything, sanitary, and it was just me and the engineer all the time. Um, but a lot of it was narrated or spoken by a younger Deckard Cain. And it was reading like all the narration and then voicing all the characters, not trying to make them all like full characters, but making it enough of a difference from the narrator that you can tell you're doing a different character. It was it was pretty confusing and complicated sometimes, but I think it's called Diablo Immortal, And there's two different versions of it. There's another audiobook version of it, which isn't me, but this one, whichever version this was me doing it. And a lot of times Deckard Cain is speaking in the book. So there was a lot of, you heard a lot of him.
Yeah. And before I wrap this up, if you can give us any update on what you're currently working on, that'd be great. And where can people find you online?
Well, I'll just say that I have done a couple of things recently that are very cool, but I'm not allowed to say anything. So, and there's another, well, let's see. There's another thing coming up, which I better not say anything about it, but it's kind of it's a new thing. The other things I referenced aren't new. This other thing is something that is a new thing. Uh, and I don't know when it's supposed to appear, but there's another upcoming thing for me to do some more recording. Um, and I think I can say this safely. There's a thing coming up for me to do Shrek, which haven't done much for a while, but I for a while I was the backup voice of Shrek whenever Mike Myers wasn't available or didn't want to do something or wanted too much money maybe or something. Um, so yeah, I'd done a lot of things, doing the voice of Shrek. And then it just sort of the last thing that I was doing as Shrek was it was mocap, you know, wearing the whole suit and the helmet with the camera in front of your face. For the DreamWorks had this online channel, and this was a thing called Swamp Talk, which was basically Shrek and Donkey have their own little talk show. So it was just these short, you know, videos, mostly of Shrek and Donkey. But it was great doing, actually acting Shrek with your whole body as well as your voice. Um, and then that, yeah, pretty much since the pandemic, there have been a couple of Shrek things here and there. So I didn't know, am I still like doing anything? I don't know. Hadn't heard anything for a few years, but sort of out of the blue, something came up, which I'm not sure when, but it's sometime in the near future. Uh, so there's another thing of that. I guess that's pretty much all I can talk about that I know of. Um,
I tried. One day I'll
yeah,
get
I mean,
someone to slip up. One day.
uh, I'll tell you this. So I was at a recording session recently, and sometimes I like to just take a picture of myself at a microphone just so I can remember what I did. Um, and so I was taking a couple of pictures, and the people in the control room said, "Ho ho ho ho! Wait a minute here. You're not going to post anything. You're not going to post that, are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." So I said, basically, I just like to remember, what I did. I don't even post that much anyway. But they were like, they're saying you must not, until this thing comes out, or otherwise you hear otherwise, you are not allowed to put anything out there. So I was like, okay. So if I slipped up and were to say anything, I think they would find me and kill me. So that's all I can say about a couple of things. And the people, like I said, I'm not even a huge, like poster of things, but people can, check me out on Instagram. Michael Gough VO is the hook. And I mean, I'm all, it's the same name on Facebook, which I've been more active on Instagram, really. Um, so yeah. And then there's michaelgough.com, which desperately needs some updating.
I love going whenever I see a voice actor's website and it hasn't been updated for like a decade. I'm like, yes, this is like a time capsule.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I put stuff on there that was old to begin with, just because it's cool. Um, yeah, I haven't I haven't gotten anything really new on there for a while, so that's on the list, on the to-do list.
Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time off to do this. I know this was like a last minute thing that we had to set up real quick, but glad it
Oh,
worked
well,
out, and I had fun reconnecting with you after all these years.
yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Abdullah. I mean, it was very cool. Thanks for reaching out again. And yeah, hey, let's do it again before another 6 years goes by. And
Uh,
so you're in Kuwait.
yes.
Now, is this where you have lived for a long time or
Yeah, I've lived here for as long as I can remember.
yeah. So you pretty much grew up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd get a lot of like American TV and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
cartoons and things. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well,
Yeah. Again, I
yeah,
would love.
thanks
I
again.
mean, again, I would love to talk to you for hours on end, but I gotta get going and I gotta wrap this up. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
hit me up and hit me up again anytime. Just give me a shout out. Let me know
Yeah.
what you're up to. And yeah, hope you get some sleep.
Thank
Because
you.
now it's like what, almost
No.
6 in the
Yeah,
morning.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.
All right. Take care. Thanks.